right now on Headline Humboldt.
She have enough evidence to prosecute and get a conviction for the person that's responsible for taking my son's life.
Is there enough evidence to convict a suspect in the killing of David Josiah Lawson? Plus, a Eureka switcheroo. Live from the top of Humboldt Hill, this is Headline Humboldt. Filling in for James Falk, I'm Eric Black. This April will mark 5 years since the killing of former Humboldt State student David Josiah Lawson. Our Ryan Hudson has more.
Looking back at the Justice for Josiah campaign and its evolution as the Lawson family pressed for answers in Humboldt County, it reflects a determined mom's struggle to get justice for her son. And according to Charmaine Lawson, the efforts will continue into 2022. I had the opportunity to sit down with Charmaine Lawson, her sister Stacy, and her son Anthony just before Christmas to talk about what Justice for Josiah might look like in the year ahead. I also had the pleasure of hearing from Josiah Lawson's younger brother, Anthony, about what his journey to college and into adulthood has been like without the guidance of his older brother.
Are still walking the street. I guarantee you, if those were two black HSU students, they would be in jail right now. They would be in jail. But the DNA on the knife is of Kyle Zona and David Josiah Lawson, and Kyle Zona is still walking the street of Humboldt County. And it's all because of District Attorney Maggie Fleming.
So I'm sitting down here in Arcata, California with Charmaine Lawson and her family. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Hi. Regrettably, we're here again talking about the Justice for Josiah campaign and the investigation surrounding Josiah Lawson's murder. It's been several years.
April will be 5 years.
April 2022 will be 5 years since Josiah's death. Charmaine, so the last time I talked to you and we spoke in detail, it was mostly about the Billboard project, and Justice for Josiah was a big part of that. We covered that in a previous segment of Headline Humboldt here at our local PBS station. I just was hoping you could give us an update about why the Billboard was canceled, and if there's a plan B for the Billboard, or where do we go from there?
Well, the Billboard wasn't canceled. The Billboard company here in Humboldt refused to put our artwork that we created. And our artwork included Maggie Fleming, District Attorney Maggie Fleming, and they did not want anything political, they stated on the billboard. We see a lot of political billboards all the time, so we were really disheartening when they told us that they wouldn't use our billboard. So
right. You know, one thing that occurred to me is exactly that. We see political advertisements on billboards all the time. Mm-hmm. It's a campaign advertisement, vote for so-and-so,
exactly,
or vote for a certain bill, a measure, for instance, anything like that. So there's various levels of controversy on billboards, right? So I was interested to know if they had given a specific reason other, did they specify that the artwork was the problem?
They said that they would not entertain anything political. So having Maggie Fleming must go, District Attorney Maggie Fleming must go on the billboard is too political, and they didn't want to be a part of that.
I see.
That was their only reasoning. Now, that was the billboard company here in Humboldt County. We were working with the billboard company in New York. So they were prepared and ready to go with our billboard, but they had to get approval from this local company. So the local company here in Humboldt is who declined or denied our billboard. Yeah.
So I had done a little bit of sleuthing, and I thought that I found the billboard company would be out front.
Uh-huh.
Is that the New York company?
Well, yes.
Okay.
And they're contracted with the local company here.
I see.
Mhm.
Okay, so there's a local owner of a billboard
Yes.
that contracts with Outfront.
Yes. In New York.
I see.
Yes. So I spoke with Danny, which is in New York, and I let him know where I want my billboard. He reached out to his local vendor and said, "Okay, we're good. We were ready to present our art. Well, we did. We presented our artwork maybe a week before it was time for us to have the billboard up. Paid for it and everything. It was paid for, and thank God they refunded us. But
Fully paid for.
fully paid for. Fully paid for. It was almost $3,000. Fully paid for.
That was my next question. Okay, in my head it was.
Mhm.
So I understand that there was some crowdsourcing that went into paying for this, right? There was a GoFundMe to help with the billboard. So good thing that it was refunded, right?
So I initially paid for the billboard up front.
Okay.
So I paid for everything up front,
Mm-hmm.
and we started a GoFundMe, which I believe maybe $500.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot.
It
as I
wasn't a
remember.
lot. I think it was like 500, but then another local organization here in Humboldt donated $500. So I think we had a little
Okay.
bit over $1,000.
Uh-huh.
So we just refunded everyone their money.
Right.
All the
Had to
money went
sort
back.
that out. Minor headache, but probably not as big of a headache as having to reconsider what to do when it got canceled
Right.
with the billboard itself. So, is there an update or is there a plan B?
Plan B, yes. Plan B is we're looking at other billboard companies. So I'm dealing with a billboard company in Los Angeles, in LA. So we're gonna have a billboard in LA. We're working on getting one in Sacramento,
Mm-hmm.
and also we talked about advertising on trucks. So trucks were driving, cross country. We're gonna have our billboards, same format, same artwork on the on trucking companies, and that's what we have right now. It's just trucks and a billboard in Los Angeles, and also a billboard in Sacramento.
Okay.
And
So
we're doing Sacramento because we have a new attorney general, and we need for him to know that we need him to take DJ's case, and also what's going on here in Humboldt County. Some serious investigation as it relates to the DA's office
Mhm.
needs to take place from the state attorney's office.
Okay. So tell us more about your interest in speaking with the current AG and okay.
Well, it's almost 5 years, and still no justice for my son, even with the evidence that we have. We have enough evidence to prosecute the person responsible for my son's murder.
Can we
And
talk about that a little bit for people who don't know? Just a brief a summarization of the evidence that many people wonder why isn't this case done? Why are we done here?
This case is not done is because we have a district attorney who wants an eyewitness. So in my opinion, and everyone else who have looked at this case, the murder weapon and the DNA evidence is not good enough for her. It's an eyewitness, which makes absolutely no sense to me. So that is why I reached out to the state attorney general, and we're praying that he takes this case. Yes. We've reached out to him, so we're just waiting. We're waiting right now. Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. I wanted to get a little personal about how the family's been coping. It's been a long time. I mean, it always feels it's like yesterday, but it's still time passes. So, if you guys could just talk to me a little bit about what it's been like for Anthony going to college, coping with that. I know, I don't know. I cannot imagine what it's like to have lost a big brother and then sort of follow that path going to college, and I know you've been really successful.
Well, Anthony's here. He can tell you his journey, and it's best for him to share with you his experience. He's an amazing son. He's super smart, and I'm so proud of him. And we've been through so much. He's been through so much. I had to send him off to college 4 months after his brother was murdered. you know, and through everything he's been through, he's made the dean's list, and he's doing great. He's doing great. I'm proud of him, but probably can share that with you.
Yeah.
The aftermath of when everything took place was really hard, just because it was hard, for me trying to identify who I was going to be as a person, just because a lot of things I was really reliant on my brother with just advice and also experience too, getting his experience of how he handled things in college and his different challenges and adversity he faced. I was robbed of all those, and so it was hard for me to lean on anyone. I always knew I had my mom, but I went away so far for college that first year that at times I felt like I didn't really have anyone, or I didn't have that same connection that I would have if I could have shared experiences with him. So I really had to key in and just learn a lot of these things by myself, which is really hard, especially when it's your first time going into a totally new environment, away from the people you love, especially after a tragedy such as this. So I really had to just do a lot of these things by myself and just learn from my mistakes and take those lessons on each and every day. And it was hard, but I was able to find new ways of coping with what had happened, such as just being around my friends, working extra hard in school, taking the mantle of just, embodying who my brother was as a person and myself, and also sharing his story throughout my community. And that alone has really been impactful, because I've been able to hear so many similar stories from other people who've gone through tragedies such as this, and we can share, coincide, and talk about how we've been able to cope together. And I've just built a new type of camaraderie in my community with people who have this similar experiences, and also people that support my family. So it's been hard, but I'm not gonna make it seem like it was just a super easy transition. But there's so many positives to what had happened, just because of the people that we're able to inspire and the people we're able to meet, and they give us even more motivation, in my opinion, to keep going, because it's bigger than ourselves. It's not just about what had happened with my brother anymore. It's about all the other people who have also dealt with the same thing, and that alone has been the most positive part of this experience and trying to cope with everything.
Or who is dealing with it. I met a mom, Bev, and she's dealing. So many moms who are dealing with this same situation,
Right.
who have dealt with the DA's office that has failed them. My really good friend Billy Joe, she's still trying to get justice for her daughter. So and they reach out to me, and we keep each other, we hold each other close, and just know that we are going to get justice, and we're not going to give up. And like Anthony said, it's a community of involvement, and it's bigger than DJ. It's bigger than DJ.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Justice for Josiah has evolved into this. How would you characterize that now, having seen it evolve and the movement? I imagine you guys as a family dealing with the tragedy, sort of evolving into what's like a political movement now. That's intense. I don't know
it's
how
funny you say that, because I've thought about that too. And I was like, you see, obviously this isn't the first time something like this happened to an impacted community. And you take a look at, for example, slogans such as, and movements such as justice for Breonna Taylor, justice for George Floyd, and the list goes on. And those were highly documented. Like, it wasn't just a small town that was aware of what had happened. It was worldwide. This was being broadcasted throughout the world. And when you look at our case, this wasn't something that was, in my opinion, as documented and broadcasted as big as these other cases. And so for us to go from just a small town and community to know of what had happened to this being a hugely marginalized movement that a lot of people are aware of now. Like, this is a slogan that isn't just, you don't just say justice for Josiah and people are like, what's that? You say that and you're like, oh my gosh, I heard it. People know about this. So for us to start from where we were to what it is now, I really just think speaks to the values of how dedicated, my mom is, and how motivated our family is to, fight for something that we believe in. And I feel like that is the biggest impact because of how it can inspire people around us.
Yeah.
I wasn't giving up, still not. And I made those trips. I was driving sometimes 14 hours to get here, twice a month to get here, to fight for my son, to meet with Maggie Fleming, to meet with the chiefs. Well, we're now on the third chief of police, and Asbacher, the president of HSU, and going to the board of trustees. I mean, I was fighting. I'm still fighting, but I think if I didn't, we wouldn't be where we are right now. Even though there's still no justice, so many people know DJ's story. I'm in the airport and people are like, "Oh, Charmaine," and that's because I sent my son off to college, and I'm a mom, and I'm gonna fight till the very end, and DJ knows that, Anthony knows, Chloe, everyone know that I'm not going anywhere. I am here to fight and get justice for my son. So to Maggie Fleming, I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, she should be ashamed of herself, but I'm not going anywhere. Okay. So that fight is...
It speaks volumes. Anthony touched on it when he said, going from where we started as Justice for Josiah. Charmaine coming out here months and months and months to fight for her son. It's become more than that. Her fight is not just for DJ. Her fight is for so many, and for a message, right? When we come here, and I haven't been here as many times as Charmaine, but just to hear what the community has to say about what she's done for the community. And she's here because her son lost his life here. That speaks volumes. And what she's doing, and that she cares about others. So it isn't about just DJ. It's bigger than that. And that is inspiring, For Anthony, I'm just so proud of him. I can remember when Anthony wouldn't speak, didn't want to speak about it. And to hear him talk now and how he's using this is just, it touches my heart too.
I mean, I'm grateful, for the media here in Humboldt. They have kept DJ's story alive as well. And the community, I feel like I have a family here.
Yeah.
And when I'm here, they show up and they support. And even when I'm not here for a monthly vigil, they still show up and hold vigils.
Yeah, it happens.
Now that we have a new AG, Attorney General, for those that don't know,
yes,
his name is Rob Bonta. Please reach out to him. Please share DJ's story. Please let him know the importance of taking DJ's case and prosecuting those responsible for my son's murder. So please reach out to him. He'll like to hear from you. Let him know that you're a resident, registered voter of the state of California, and this is a case that he must take. My son was an outstanding young man, a student, a friend, and he was taken from us viciously, and his murderer still walked the streets of Humboldt County. And there's more people that need to be prosecuted. I think this was a hate crime. I'm calling this a hate crime, and this case need to be taken away from Humboldt County, because District Attorney Maggie Fleming does not care about my son and justice for him. She doesn't care. So we need this new AG to prosecute this case.
There was one thing that occurred to me that I wanted to ask you about. And so the district attorney's office, Maggie Fleming's office, has said in the past, she's made official statements to the effect that she needs a conflict of interest to be established in order to refer the case out to the Attorney General of California. Can you speak on that a little bit?
The conflict of interest would be, that's just her terms for trying to scapegoat and push this under the rug. This case is an open and shut case. This case was botched by Buckingham, Deputy District Attorney Buckingham, when they went to the grand jury. So there's no conflict of interest. The only conflict I would say is Maggie Fleming is incompetent. Humboldt County DA's office is just incompetent. They're incompetent, they're biased, and my opinion, racist. Because if the shoes was on the other foot, my son would be in prison based on the evidence that they have. She have enough evidence to prosecute and get a conviction for the person that's responsible for taking my son's life.
And there was only one suspect ever identified, is that correct?
One suspect, and I met with the chief today, and that one suspect is still the only suspect with the DNA evidence of that one suspect. So I'm not sure what else she wants.
She just wants to keep control. That's why she wants to be able to say there's no conflict of interest, to say we can continue to keep this in our control. So her way of saying, well, there isn't a reason I can't handle this. That's why she's making that statement. That's being said about her, you would think she'd want to come to Charmaine and say, can we have a sit down? Can we talk about this? Can I tell you something? Mm-hmm. Right? You would think. Usually though, when people are guilty and they've done wrong, they hide.
But there's a lot of dirty DAs out there, you know. I'm not saying she's one of them. I'm just saying there's a lot of dirty DAs out there. They're all over, so. That's all I'm saying.
I'll leave it at that.
And note that just a few hours ago, Humboldt County District Attorney Maggie Fleming announced she will not seek re-election this year. She was first elected in 2014 and ran unopposed in 2018. The California Department of Public Health has extended the statewide indoor mask mandate for an additional month to February 15th. Meanwhile, the Omicron variant of COVID appears to have arrived in Humboldt County.
Many jurisdictions who are living through this right now, even with all the preparations, have not had enough testing. So testing is likely to be limited even with all these preparations. The last thing I wanted to let everyone know about is that we will be releasing new isolation and quarantine orders today to line up with all of the changing orders that are coming down from the federal agencies and through CDPH.
At the virtual news conference this week, reporters also asked about school closures and hospital shortages.
It's mostly going to be the staffing, that's based on what we've seen in other places. We're seeing less of severe hospitalizations. The hospitalizations are certainly up in many, many places, and they are seeing increases of number of beds taken up by COVID infections, but they don't seem to be as severe and much less ICU patients with COVID. Not to say that they don't exist, but there certainly seem to be quite a bit less than previously with the other variants. As far as being safe in the schools, I think that it's still the safest place for kids to be. Certainly we know the disruptions that virtual learning took on kids over the last couple of years. So we're not recommending going to virtual classrooms. It might be a necessity for some districts or some schools because of staffing issues. I think that's really, again, going back to what the hallmark of this surge has been in many other places, is that staffing becomes very difficult with so many people out sick at once.
And note, since the start of the pandemic, no one under the age of 20 has died of COVID in Humboldt County. 6 people in that age range have been hospitalized. Turning our attention to Eureka, on Tuesday, the City Council resolved a conundrum: whether to use limited urban space for housing or parking. The city originally planned to build apartments at these 3 city-owned downtown parking lots. but business owners complained about the loss of parking.
Our business is right there on the corner of 4th and G Streets, and we located in that location because it was convenient. We have thousands of clients who come from all over and come to Eureka. They come and park, meet with us, drop things off, pick things up. The idea that parking is particularly essential for our business. Most of our clients candidly skew a little older than average, and so longer walks are more of a problem.
To accommodate parking advocates, the Pearsons offered to give the city their residentially zoned, mostly vacant land located between Winco and the mall. The city would build housing on that property. In exchange, the Pearsons would acquire the downtown lots and preserve parking. But opponents of the switcheroo envisioned housing on both properties.
Whether or not the city develops the Pearsons lot, someone is going to. It is zoned for housing development, and given population pressures and housing pressures in our area, it's likely that this is going to be developed. I think that what we're doing is we're functionally removing 3 areas in a really prime part of our city from future housing development.
That plea fell on deaf ears. The city council voted 4-1 to exchange the properties, in part because city staff determined more units could be built on the Pearson property compared to the downtown lots. As for neighbors concerned about low-income residents moving in near Winco,
a little reality check here. So to be low income, that's $34,312 a year. That's $16.50 an hour. We're just talking about working families. And I happen to think the second ward would be a great place for working families, as it is a great place for my working family.
And note that some housing advocates are threatening to sue the city. They say the property swap violates the city's general plan. In other housing news, 8-story high-rises could soon produce an Arcata skyline. Yep, an Arcata skyline. In response to the local housing shortage, the city proposes rezoning industrial lands west of the plaza. Under the draft Gateway Area Plan, the area just north of Samoa Boulevard could host up to 8-story apartment buildings. City officials will accept public feedback at this Tuesday's Planning Commission meeting, or at open houses on January 21st and 22nd at the Community Center. Crime news: Eureka police have identified the man shot and wounded by officers last week. After police tried to arrest him, EPD says 29-year-old Hupa resident Little Eagle Moon allegedly rammed police cars and drove towards cops. EPD says an officer shot and wounded Moon. He suffered serious but non-life-threatening injuries. EPD will release body cam footage of that shooting. A suspect was arrested yesterday in the shooting and killing of a man in Alder Point. Jake Henry Combs was booked on murder charges. The name of the victim has not been released. Well, that's our show for tonight. We're back next Friday at 7 for another edition of Headline Humboldt. Until then, stay tuned, stay informed.